Tonight our topic is well-being, and our hosts are Sarah and Holly from Pathfinders. So I'm just going to let them introduce what they'll be getting up to.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today for this session on well-being, advocacy, campaigning, and lived experience. I'm Sarah, and I'll be hosting alongside Holly today. If we could have the presentation up with the first slide, please. Ably assisted by Jackie in the background. And if we could go to the next screen, and the one after that. So, yeah, over the next hour, we're going to be covering advocacy, a specific campaign, and campaigning in general. And to finish, we were looking at well-being techniques and advice. Next slide, please. In terms of speakers, you'll be hearing from Holly and then me, and we're also delighted to be joined by our guest Oliver Poole, and there will be time for a live Q&A at the end. Next slide, please. Alright, so let's get started. I'm going to introduce you to my wonderful co-host Holly. Holly may be known to some of you as our advocacy officer at Pathfinders. She brings lived experience, a background in social policy, and has a wealth of experience in advocating in different areas of life. She is extremely passionate about empowering people with muscle weakening conditions to live life on their own terms. And Holly, it's over to you.
Thanks so much, Sarah. So I'll just get right into it. So when we hear the word advocacy, many of us think about formal campaigns or policy work, and those are really important. But for me, advocacy is just simply speaking up for your needs, your rights, and access to the support that you deserve. So well-being is more than just physical health. It includes our mental, emotional, and our connections with others. Advocacy is a tool that strengthens all of these areas. It empowers us to get the support that we need. It reduces the feelings of isolation, and it helps us take control of our own lives, which is really important for everyone, but more so important when you've got a disability. I want to share a quite personal example. So a few years ago, I was in a workplace where basic accessibility needs weren't being met. So simple things like working at a pace that was too fast for me, or constantly working with my hands without a break, and things like that can make life really difficult, and not just when you're clocked into work, but it can make things difficult when you're at home, around your family, when you're constantly stressed and exhausted. It can affect both your physical and mental well-being. So once I started advocating for adjustments and explaining what I needed and why, it was amazing how small changes made a huge difference. Suddenly I could participate fully and focus on my work instead of navigating constant barriers, and it was the same for at home. That experience showed me firsthand how advocacy isn't just about rules or policies, it's about improving everyday life and well-being. So advocacy isn't just about speaking out, it's about shaping the conditions that allow us and others to thrive. So the next slide. So even though advocacy can be powerful, many people face barriers that affect their well-being. So some common barriers for people with neuromuscular conditions include feeling unheard in healthcare or support systems like social care, difficulty accessing services and the resources that they need, not knowing the services and resources that they're entitled to, social isolation or limited community connections, stigma, misunderstanding, or a lack of awareness around certain conditions and your needs. So in my role, I see countless barriers every day, whether they're big or small, whether they're inaccessible workplaces, barriers in social care, lack of housing adaptations, barriers to travelling. These barriers don't just affect them and there. It's not just when I'm struggling at work, or when I'm struggling with social care. It affects your entire life, every single day, your connections with people, just how you feel about yourself, how you feel about others. It can lead to some dangerous spirals, so it can impact your confidence, your independence, your emotional health. This is why advocacy is so important, because by advocating for ourselves or supporting others to advocate, we can help remove those barriers and create conditions for better well-being. Next slide, please. So advocacy is a tool for improving well-being for ourselves and for others. Speaking up about your needs and rights is really important, in supporting others and expressing their voices. Building and engaging in supportive communities like our Pathfinders community. We have loads of events. Influencing policies and services for positive change, like the campaigning that Sarah's doing with allowing PAs in hospitals. These are all things that we can advocate for that will help our overall well-being. So at the same time, it's vital to care for yourself while advocating. It can be an extremely stressful and strenuous thing to do, especially if you're advocating for something personal. It can be really, really hard. So what I would say is use support services when you need them. Help is always available. Our Pathfinder's Advocacy Service, I am always available for anything, even if it's the smallest thing. It'll be big to you and it's something I can help with. You do not ever need to advocate for yourself alone. Set boundaries to protect your mental and emotional well-being. It can be really hard to do that, especially if it's something that's impacting you personally. But it's always good to take a step back and give yourself space to do that. Take breaks and remember that you cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot help yourself if you are exhausted and stressed out and you're not having a good time at home. You need to take the time to rest and recharge. Advocacy doesn't have to have a huge impact to make a difference. Small actions can have meaningful impacts. And by combining action with self-advocacy, self-care, advocacy can become sustainable. Every voice matters and every action counts. And by advocating responsibly, we can strengthen our autonomy, confidence, and access to resources, which are key pillars of well-being. So that's me. Thank you so much for listening. And I'm now handing over to Sarah, who's going to talk about the campaigning that she's done on enabling us to have our PAs in hospitals.
Oh, thank you, Holly. That's brilliant. Got a lot of good insights and useful things to take away from your presentation. Just a reminder that if anybody has any questions, I believe they can be put in the chat, and then we can put those to any of our guests at the end. So moving on to campaigning, and there's a definite link with advocacy, and they do very often cross over. So if advocacy is speaking up or raising awareness, campaigning is more like actively looking at how to move towards change, often coming together with others who are going through similar situations or with a specific interest in order to push for action. So the particular campaign I'm going to talk about is the one that I've been involved with, which is about enabling PAs to provide personal care support for, when we're in hospital settings. So I thought I'd share a little bit about how it began to start with. So it all sort of stemmed from our members on our Pathfinders Facebook page sharing experiences where they'd been denied their PAs or familiar caregivers when they were in hospital settings, which left them at risk, anxious, and had repercussions for their overall health because things weren't done as they needed to be. This then led to conversations and a general concern that there was no consistent policy for this situation. The impression that we were getting was that there was a lot of variation across the UK, and that was not only amongst hospital trusts, but also care providers and funders with their policies. So where are we at now? We started this research and campaigning it's somewhere in 2021. So right sort of, I mean, the pandemic times. So I think things were quite different at that point, but these things were already there before that. It's just that the COVID tended to shine a spotlight on whether our PAs were allowed to stay with us. So the current situation, I think, is that there is a general acceptance that allowing our caregivers to continue to provide this personal care is essential for safety, dignity, continuity. But there aren't really any assurances or concrete changes that have come about to protect our rights in these circumstances. So in terms of, say, integrated care boards, for example, so one type of funding, we've seen very recent inclusion in or changes to policy with direct payment agreements. So at least it is being considered more. But say, for example, my own ICB, they did decide that it needed to be included in the policy. However, I don't feel that the wording as such captured what we were asking for, because it did acknowledge that PAs could accompany us, but on the other side of things, he said it was only for emotional support, and that's not what we were calling for. So it felt like, yes, they were acknowledging the hospital setting, but it wasn't quite, it just felt like a bit of a backward step. But it did start the conversation. So you have to be aware of sort of celebrating the fact that it is a topic of conversation, but at the same time, you don't want them to sit back and think, oh, yes, we've done it now, because it's not quite fit for purpose. So, also with recent freedom of information requests that we've done at Pathfinders, it's shown that the approaches range from no mention at all in policies, PAs not being allowed, to the other end of the scale, where there's complete agreement for PAs to support us in hospital. So there's sort of two different strands of the argument going on here. There's the hospital trusts needing to be on board, but also the care funders, which could be local authority or integrated care board. There's a recent report, I think it was last week, it came out that the government, the Department of Health and Social Care, had been reviewing something called Regulation 9A of the CQC. And that was to do with visitor policies in hospital. And myself and other path members had contributed to a working group about that. And I did celebrate the fact that personal assistants were mentioned, which previously they hadn't been. So that was a sort of a mini victory. However, it was more about acknowledging that they needed to be included, but not how this would work in practice and how we could ensure that this was translated at all different levels through the NHS. I think there's a lot of work to be done on that, and also I think the definitions that have visitor isn't sort of, I'm not sure it encompasses what we're talking about in terms of our personal assistance. There are a few other campaigns that are going on as well at the same time as ours, with slightly different angles. There is one which is more from the perspective of family members and unpaid carers being allowed to support people, and also, um, which I'll go on to talk about a little bit more later, is a campaign by a lady with multiple sclerosis about allowing care company PAs to assist in hospitals. So, which is, it's so similar to ours. So we are endorsing and supporting that campaign. But what we want to do is make sure that the role of the personal assistant is not overlooked, because that's crucial to so many of our members. So on the next slide, we're going to talk about how we've got to where we are and some of the things that I've been involved with that our supporters have. So as I alluded to before, it's all started with evidence. Evidence from our members, from people sharing their personal experiences, which have led to case studies. We've had some webinars and online events to talk about things, and also with the freedom of information requests, which Holly's been helping me with. We were able to get a lot of data in terms of what hospitals and care boards were doing with their policies on this issue. It's led to some crafting, which is a sort of it was a slightly sort of alternative method of campaigning, but it enabled the community to come together. We made a bunting, hence the bunting graphic across the middle, and we produced a really visual way of expressing what we were calling for, and it started conversations. And we took it to Bexhill Seafront one day, and we had people asking us, we were just taking pictures of it, but it got people asking what it was all about. So that's sort of the starting point for a lot of campaigns. We've done a lot in terms of communication, so liaising with other charities, other neuromuscular charities, using social media, emails, different events, and just gathering support from other organisations, allies within the NHS, just really talking to people within the decision makers as well. The stakeholders, I think I met with policy departments within the NHS England, and also, as I said earlier, with the that should say DHSC, I apologise, Department of Health and Social Care. And we're also aware that this just isn't affecting England, although that's where a lot of our data has come from. But we are keen to roll that out in other areas. I'm so sorry, my phone's just ringing. I'll just get rid of it. Okay. So yes, and I think sometimes it's hard to to keep going and to know which direction to take the campaign in. But we do, and we are making progress. I think on the next slide, I'll talk about that a bit more. But so I thought I'd just write down a few of the positives and negatives to, not negatives, but the downsides to campaigning. So on the upside, um, we see just the little achievements, and that might be just getting somebody to listen or to sign posters somewhere or to share something, um, being invited to a working party. All of those things, they might not be the ultimate goal, but it's a means to getting to that goal. And so I think it's important to recognise the little things. And I know that Holly mentioned the same in terms of advocacy earlier on. Um, the engagement, just linking up with all different parties, with stakeholders, with people with lived experience, and also the feeling that you're being listened to, you're being heard, um, people understand, they get it, they know what you're asking for. That's important to get people on the same page. And I have found that um, nobody is um, arguing with what we're calling for. I think the detail um, is how we get there. And so that's why it's important for people with lived experience to be part of that. So co-production is a really important part. That we're involved in the solution. We're asked, what success would look like for us, how best our needs would be met, and helping to decide or create future policies. So when you feel that you're moving forwards, you're having successes, or you're getting to the next stage, and ultimately when you're sick, real change occur, and that could be a way off, but um, when you do it, it sort of makes it all worthwhile, and even if it's a shifted attitude, that can be powerful. Whether if it's not policy, but just having the ethos changing. Um, there are of course downsides. Sometimes you feel like you're hitting your head against a brick wall, or somebody that a really good contact you've made will leave the department, or you have to start all over again, or you have to change course. It is tiring. Um, you have to be careful not to burn yourself out. Um, things are disappointing sometimes. I know in some of the meetings I've been invited to, I've got there and found that it's not quite the right sort of area, um, or that that's not what the meeting was about. But you just keep trying and chipping away at just talking about the subject. And then it's also quite frustrating when you've read all of the red tape, which I think is part of our lives, whether it's councils or care providers. It's it's just one of those things that you have to accept, but it is the downside of all of this. But as you can see, the ups outweigh the downs, or they do in my opinion. So if we could go to the next slide, please. So I thought I would just share some top tips. So small wins or wins. So yes, celebrate everything that you achieve. It doesn't have to be big. You're aiming big. There's a lot of things to be celebrating along the way. It's important to have clear and realistic goals so you know where you're headed and you can get organised and be clear to whoever you're talking to as well. Be part of the solution. That's where the co-production comes in. Keep an open mind as well because I think you need to be prepared to listen to the people that you're talking to, if the stakeholders or decision makers, and maybe that there were things that you hadn't thought of or other aspects that you might need to go away and think about. I think being approachable is key. I think sometimes I've had the tendency to be a little bit prickly, and I think you want to be listened and heard, listened to and heard, and in the way that you listen to other people. So it works both ways, and also to be flexible. So maybe if something isn't working, recognize that and perhaps change direction or tweak your campaigning a little bit. Sometimes doors open that you're not expecting, so grab those opportunities when they arise. And then key to well-being and the core theme of today really is to take the time out. You can get bogged down with things like this, and also look for people to share with um, other supporters, people with lived experience or skills that might be useful, and share the load because you don't have to do all of it. Certainly not all at once. Next slide, please. And then just to round off, um, ways that if you want to get involved with this particular campaign, as I mentioned before, there's a petition going on with called Nina's Law, and I've put the details on the slide. That's the web address. You can sign that petition, and that's I think they need to get 100,000 for it to be debated. So they went on their way. I think they're nearly halfway, but any additions to that petition would be fantastic. Um, and if you want to share your experiences of having your PA support you in hospital, or find out more about how you can help with the campaign, then please feel free to drop me an email, sarah.rose@pathfindersalliance.org.uk, or if you're in contact with any of our staff members, then you can always go through them as well, and we can get in touch with you. I think that is it from me. So thank you for listening. Um, and so we're now going to be joined by Oliver. He is a psychotherapist and founder of HEAR4U, which supporting adults with anxiety and stress, combining integrative therapy with lived experience to promote compassionate well-being. Thank you for joining us today, Oliver, and take it away.
Hi everyone. Thank you for the handover, Sarah. So yeah, I'm Oliver Paul. I'm a registered BACP psychotherapist and founder of HEAR4U. Massive thank you for having me again, Pathfinders. And we're going to be talking about well-being, particularly what it means, how it can quietly affect us, and hopefully give you guys some practical tools that can make a difference. And also I'll share a bit of my own perspective, both professional and personal. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So who am I and why it matters? So as I said earlier, I'm a therapist. Basically means I don't really, the integrative part means I don't really believe in one method that works for all. I believe that different approaches, depending on the person and what they need, it needs to be tailored to that person. I also live with spinal muscular atrophy type 1. So I bring both professional knowledge and lived experience to my practice. That matters to me because I feel that mental health isn't just a theory. Um, in my sort of personal life journey, I understood something around vulnerability, frustration, identity, resilience, and what it feels like and want to be seen as a whole. So the main thing I really want to kind of hit home tonight is well-being is not about being perfect. Your feelings usually usually make sense in context. Um, Small habits, baby steps, bite size, usually help more than the big dramatic fixes. Um, and also, a massive point for well-being, you deserve support without having to prove that you need it. Okay? Can I have the next slide, please? Okay, so what well-being really means. So often when people hear the word well-being, they often think it means, being positive or calm. But real well-being is so much bigger than that. It can be shaped by your body, your thoughts, your confidence, your identity, and of course your relationships. So you can see there's a bit more information around that. But yeah, I'm sure we can all apply this flowchart to our lives. I know I certainly can. May I have the next slide, please? Sorry, can I go back one? I jumped too fast. Sorry, person in the sky. So also your stress levels are really important with your well-being, and whether life feels manageable or not. For example, if you're tired, in pain, feeling left out, under pressure, or constantly comparing yourself to others, this will have an effect on your well-being. So well-being is not just about thinking happy thoughts, it is also about feeling more connected to yourself, more supported by other people, and having a bit more choice in how you respond to life. Right, I'm ready for you for the next slide now. Apologies there. Okay, so common patterns that we that quietly wear us down. A lot of people struggle in ways that are not obvious from the outside. Sometimes the biggest problems are the quiet patterns that build up over time. For example, masking. So masking is where we act fine when you're really not. Which is, for me, I think that's so British. That's our culture. Um, Comparison and feeling behind everybody else. People pleasing and minimizing your own needs. Withdrawing because it feels safer not to talk. Having a very harsh inner critic. And then pushing on until you hit burnout. None of these mean you are weak. Usually they mean stress has been sitting there for too long without enough support. But the good news is, very good news is that once you notice that pattern, you are more able to change it. Okay? Next slide, please. So, my intrapersonal relational model that I've been developing, and it's still in the works, this is a bit of a what's the word, preview of it. So, and how I've been sort of working in my own practice. I've just analysed it from a existential philosophical lens here. So my personal way of understanding well-being is this. It sounds like such a big phrase, by the way, that model. Do apologise. but the idea behind it is really simple. Intrapersonal means what's happening inside of you. So that means your thoughts, how you're feeling, your emotions, your body signals, and also your self talk. Relational means how you connect with other people, trust, boundaries, feeling safe, feeling included, feeling valued. My view is that these two things constantly affect each other. The way you treat yourself affects how you relate to others, and the other way, and the other, I can't speak, sorry, and the way other people treat you can affect how you see yourself. Then that affects what actions you take, like whether you ask for help, whether you avoid doing things, whether you rest, whether you push through, whether you open up or you shut down. Over time, this shapes your identity and your sense of worth. So for me, well-being grows through awareness, compassion, and choice. In very simple terms, how I feel inside affects my relationships. My relationships affect how I feel inside, if that makes sense. Obviously, chat, if you want to send a question open, I've got you up in front of me here, so don't worry if you do want to ask something. So should I have the next slide, please? Thank you very much. So a practical well-being process. So this is a simple process you can use when life just gets a bit overwhelming. You don't have to do it perfectly. It's just a way to slow things down. So pause the first step. Stop for a second. Take one breath and create a tiny gap before reacting. There's no pressure to react in immediacy. Okay? Allow us to cover ourselves. Then we can notice what is actually happening in my body. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? And then just have a few moments with that to give a bit of identity to it. That then comes on to the naming, to try to put words to it. Maybe I feel anxious or overloaded or I feel flat. Then it goes on to the need. Okay, then ask yourself then, what do you need right now? Could be rest, reassurance, structure, space, food, whatever is good for you. This is so subjective, okay? Then the next step is pick one. This is a really key one because some people slip up on this bit. Realistic action. Realistic to the situation that you're in, because otherwise the process just doesn't work. So pick one realistic action, not 10, just one. And the key message here is you do not need to fix your whole life in one go. You just need the next step, that kind step, okay? Brilliant. Could I have the next slide, please? So then we come on to support boundaries and self-respect. A lot of people treat their own needs like they are an inconvenience, but well-being improves when we start taking our own needs seriously. And the good thing is boundaries are a big part of this, okay? So boundaries aren't being rude. I remember I was like, oh God, boundaries. I feel like such a judgmental person or I don't want to rupture the relationship, but they are key. They really are. So it's not about being rude with boundaries. They're about protecting your energy, your safety, your dignity, and your personality as a whole. But also support is crucial as well. Support can be emotional, practical, or just having someone who really listens. Um, but sometimes asking for help is actually the strongest thing you can do. Um, and I know myself with SMA, getting that thing where asking for help it can be quite frustrating, and I'm sure everyone can relate to that. And the other thing that really matters is rest. Now, rest is not laziness. I'm going to say it again. Rest is not laziness. Rest is often what helps your mind and body recover enough to cope properly. The questions on this slide are useful because they help you check in with yourself honestly. Even asking, when am I pretending to be fine, can be really powerful. Could I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So then also there's some, little useful apps and tools in our digital age that we're in. But obviously, apps are not magic, okay? They do not replace therapy or, proper support, but they are really useful tools. And also, the main thing is to find something that fits your real life, your routine. Briefly, Headspace, for example, is a good one. Headspace app is good for guided mediation and structure. So Headspace is the first one. The second one, we have Calm. Calm is helpful for breathing and sleep support. We have Insight Timer, which has a lot of flexibility and variety for organisation. And we have Dailyo, which is useful for mood tracking and spotting patterns. Dailyo, that is Daylio. Now, the best app isn't the fanciest one. The best app to me, I don't know about you guys, but the best apps I use are the ones I use. So whatever kind of situation you're going on or emotion you're feeling, there is kind of an app for that. And I suggest maybe just even using Google or some sort of AI like Gemini to have a look for, is there an app for what I'm going through right now to help me as a tool? And I'd imagine there is generally. So these are no way, exhaustive. This is only literally a drop in the ocean, guys, in terms of the app world and well-being. Okay. So, can I go to the final slide, please? So, the final takeaway points I hope to give to you guys tonight is, firstly, your well-being makes more sense when you look at it from both your inner world and relationships. So that your inner world and your relationships is really important to consider and sort of take a check on. Number two, self-awareness matters, but it works best when it comes with self-compassion. Noticing your struggle is important. Being kind to yourself is just as important. That is really important. The third part is you don't have to earn rest, support, or kindness. Those are things that are part of healthy well-being. So yeah, thank you so much for listening, everybody. And I hope someone tonight has felt it's been useful or helpful in some way. And happy to take any questions.
Thanks so much, Oliver. That was really helpful, and I'm sure everyone else would have found it helpful as well. So like Oliver said, the last part of the evening's event is to take questions. So please do just pop any questions that you have in the little chat box, and we'll be happy to answer them.
In order to ask questions, there's a Q&A function on the top right. You can put your question in the Q&A function and we'll have access to that and we can let you know. I've got a question to start everybody off. What should you do if you feel you're not being listened to by professionals?
Do you mind if I take this one? So what I would say is that's a common thing, so just don't feel alone. I'd say take a step back, maybe ask someone else their opinion on the situation, so a family member, someone close to you. I wouldn't go at it straight away. Take a night, maybe, take a day, whatever time you need, and then draft an email or phone up or whatever you find easiest and say, look, I don't feel like you're listening to me. Here's why. Give them the opportunity to right the wrong. And if they don't, that's when you could seek formal advocacy or advocate for yourself. Yeah.
That's great, Holly. Is there anything you want to add?
just that I know that putting things in writing really helps me. Just to organise. When I think about it, it takes a bit of the emotion out of the situation as well. You know, taking time, getting it down on paper, even sort of stepping away, not looking at it, going back, and then sending it to whoever needs to read it. Yeah, that's really good advice.
What I like to do is I copy and paste the email into my Gemini, then I'll say what I really feel about it, and then say, put it really softly for me. Yeah,
Yes, that's a great tip. I think
yeah,
I'm
so I do it,
using
and then you can do it
yeah.
really quickly, and then you can rage at it, rage at your prompt, and then you'll say, but then at the end of the prompt, say, right, as a professional, it's going to social services or TCG, and then it'll be like fantastically articulated, but it really gets your feelings and your message across.
That's brilliant, thank you. I just would add that I find that if you send something like Oliver said, you can rage at something, but it's best to put it in draft if it's going to be an email and go back to it the next day. So don't send it straight away. Whatever you do, leave it there for a little while so you can go back to it and feeling a little bit calmer or more able to manage with it. And we've got another question. How can I stay hopeful or positive when things are really difficult?
I think realizing your own resources actually in these times are really helpful, because we can often forget the achievements we've done historically to date and what we're actually capable of. And when we're overwhelmed by it all, we can lose our own sense of abilities and skill and experience to overcome these things. And I know I sound like a broken record as well, but support from friends, family, and I know I keep going about AI, but AI has been so revolutionary with me as a disabled man, and it's a real game changer of evening the leveling in the playing field, I feel.
Thank you. We've got a question for all three of you from here on here as well. So the question is, what's something you do for your own well-being? Should we start with Sarah?
Good question. Yeah. So I try to. Well, I do practice meditation, and I've got one of the. I have used Balance, the app that Oliver mentioned, but currently I use one. No, I used to use Headspace, and then now I use one called Balance, which is very similar. Um, but also I try and do a little bit of find some sort of activity that brings me joy, or whether that's gaming. Sometimes I just have a blast of Mario Kart, just something different that I have to be present in. And it just takes the edge off, if I've felt particularly fatigued by whatever's going on, or um, just my brain is too full. I want to do something completely, well, obviously I need to concentrate on where I'm driving, but I don't need to think about it too much. Or just watch something on telly, or really loud music, something to suit my mood, do something nice to eat, just a little bit of kindness, which, Oliver was talking about just now, being good to yourself as well, and breaking up the sense of feeling overwhelmed, or changing your routine in some way as well. That could help.
Great, Sarah, thank you. Holly?
Yeah, I completely agree with Sarah. I think giving yourself some kindness is such a good thing to do, but it can be really hard, especially if you're having a difficult time. I'm quite lucky. I speak to my partner or my mum about anything and everything. So I think reaching out to people close to you is really important. And yeah, just being nice to yourself and taking a step back, and yeah, just looking after yourself and letting other people look after you as well.
I think going deeper as well here. Why don't you like yourself? 'Cause I mean, like, there's people around you that love you and like you. So why don't you like yourself? And maybe start challenging this thought, challenge this emotion, question it. Don't take it at face value. That's my advice.
Great, Oliver, thank you. I would echo Sarah in the. I know that you mentioned eat something nice. So for me, for my own well-being, I treat myself to something I really like.
And something that Holly said as well. I find talking to my peers, so everyone on the Pathfinder site or different groups that I'm involved with, just talking to people who get it, that is quite important as well. That can really help.
Thank you, Sarah. We've just got time for a couple more questions. We've got this one as well. Is there anything I could do to prepare if I have an appointment or stay in hospital? I think that's for you, Sarah.
Okay, should I take that one? So I think writing lists is a big one for me. I think it takes the pressure out of remembering everything. I mean, most of us have a lot of stuff to take with us, whether that, is equipment, medication, um, technology, charger leads, spares of everything. Um, I've got a list that I keep on my phone that I get it, so I don't have to keep reinventing this list. It's just there for this situation, very similar to my holiday lists, with a few additions. And yeah, write lists. Think about things that you need to be in place. So I'd like to talk to the ward, if it's an admission that you're talking about. Um, I talk to the ward sister, anything that I need to be the equipment. So, like, I would need a hoist on the ward. I was actually able to have a specialist bed delivered when I was staying a few years ago. And that took a lot of coordinating. And I didn't just ask the once or check once. I was ringing every week to make sure it was in place because that was a priority for me. So sort of working out the crucial things. Also, my hospital was very good at allowing my PAs to go with me. So that I liaised, created rotas, sorted all that out. I do enjoy that side of things, but it also meant that once I knew those things were in place, I could concentrate on me and what I was about to go through. Um, it took the weight away. Also, I'd just like to mention that one of our recent videos produced in our PA employer series did touch on that sort of thing with PAs accompanying you and the conversations that you might want to have beforehand to make sure things go well. Things like, do you want them to come into a consultation with you just so the expectations are clear? So I would recommend if that is something that you're concerned about, have a look on our YouTube channel, the Pathfinders YouTube channel, because I was involved in it, so obviously I would endorse it. But I think it would be of use to somebody in that situation.
Thank you, Sarah. That's brilliant. And I will send out links to all these things that have been recommended at the end of the event for those who attended. We've got time now, probably for just one more question. So we're going to go with this is for all three of you, I think. What advice would you give to your younger self about well-being? You've each only got a minute as well. I'll just go for a minute.
Yeah, I think for me, younger self, it'll be okay. I think I was just so worried about everything and barriers, but I think what I'd say to my younger self is, Oliver, you need to trust in Oliver. He'll get you through. He will, no matter what it is.
That's great, Oliver. Thank you. Sarah?
Yeah, sort of similar, really. Have confidence in yourself and your abilities, and don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it.
Yeah, I would agree. Don't be afraid to ask for help, because most of the time, if you're going through something, a lot of people won't know that, so they won't be able to support you. You need to allow people to help you and support you. Yeah, and just love yourself.
That's absolutely brilliant. Thank you all so much. It's been really insightful. Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you to our speakers, Holly, Sarah, and Oliver. And we'd love to see you at the next event. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Hope you leave with something useful, encouraging, and empowering from today. So, yeah, thank you for attending. And thank you to all the people that have made this event possible. Kath and also the rest of the Uplift team. Thanks very much. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, guys. Good evening and good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.